Good morning, students. Welcome you all in the live virtual class organized by Board of Studies of ICAI. Students, today we are going to start a very important, a very lengthy, and a very interesting topic in DS 116, which talks about lease accounting. Okay. So, friends, if I talk about this lease accounting, we have three standards. When I say three standards, I'm talking about old accounting standard. What is the standard in the old accounting standard on leases? AS 19. Okay. AS 19 talks about lease accounting in accounting standard, which you have already covered in your CA Inter. Then, friends, globally, it was IAS 17 when we had notified Ind AS in India. So, anyone can tell me when Ind AS was notified in India? When Ind AS came to India? Any idea?
I think 16th of March 2016.
16 February 2015.
Yeah,
16
February.
February 2015. Yes, you were very close. 16 February 2015. Okay. So Ind AS was notified in India before a decade. Means Ind AS became the reality in India before a decade. It was in February 2015. Okay. So friends, when Ind AS were notified in India, at that point of time, globally in IFRS, there was IAS 17, International Accounting Standard 17, and we in India had notified Ind AS 17. When we notified Ind AS, at that point of time, we had notified Ind AS 17. Right? So friends, globally, this IAS 17 was effective up to 31st December 2018 because globally they are following calendar year. We are following financial year. Right? So friends, in our India also, this Ind AS 17 was effective till 31st March 2019. Okay. Till 31st March 2019, this standard was applicable. And from 1st January 2019, globally IFRS 16 was notified. Globally, IFRS 16 was notified. And hence, we have also notified Ind AS 116 effective as on date and effective from which date? Effective from 1st April 2019. Up to 31st March 2019, Ind AS 17 was applicable. From 1st April 2019, Ind AS 116 is applicable. To cut a long story short, in accounting standard, it is AS 19. In IFRS, it is IFRS 16. In Ind AS, it is Ind AS 116 applicable as on date. Okay. So friends, what was the need for moving from IAS 17 to IFRS 16? What was the need? We already had a standard on leases. Globally also, we had IAS 17. Then what was the need for moving to IFRS 16? And of course, in India, we have converged IFRS applicable to India. Ind AS are the converged IFRS applicable to India. So whatever changes will come in IFRS, it will eventually come in Ind AS also. Okay. So that's how when globally IFRS 16 was implemented, we had implemented Ind AS 116. Ind AS 116. Okay. So friends, let me tell you what was the reason for bringing IFRS 16 and Ind AS 116. Friends, our AS 19 and old IAS 17, old Ind AS 17, they were largely the same. AS 19 and Ind AS 17 or IAS 17, it was largely same. And what was the problem in old IAS 17 or old Ind AS 17? Let me brief you. Friends, in the year 2005, I am talking about year 2005. In the year 2005, the Securities and Exchange Commission of USA, the staff of USA, the staff of Securities and Exchange Commission of USA. They were looking at the listed company balance sheet in USA. They were looking at the listed company's balance sheet in USA. And what they have found, जब वो यूएस की लिस्टेड कंपनी की बैलेंस शीट देख रहे थे, तो what they have found, they found that lot of assets and liabilities which came on leases is outside the balance sheet. They found some mismatch, they found some anomalies, and they found that $3 trillion, equivalent to India's GDP, $3 trillion worth of $3 trillion worth of assets and liabilities were sitting off balance sheet, were sitting outside the balance sheet. Right. And why it is sitting outside the balance sheet? Because those were leasehold assets and liabilities. Those were leasehold assets and liabilities. Friends, let me brief you one by one. Okay. And what was the challenge? What was the reason at that point of time? Let me take you on my Excel file and then I'll explain with the help of the Excel file. So we discussed, I hope my Excel file is visible. Yes.
Yes,
We
sir,
discussed AS 19 leases, IFRS 16 leases, and IND AS 116 leases. These are three standard. And let me tell you, IAS 17, old standard on leases was effective up to which date? Up to 31st December 2018. 31st December 2018. And IND AS 17, sorry. IND AS 17. Old standard on leases was effective up to 31st March 2019. Why? Because globally they are following calendar year, we are following financial year. Now coming to the IND AS 116. Before that, let me talk about globally why the standard on leases was changed. And believe me, when the standard on leases was changed, it has made an entire change in the lessee accounting. It has made a substantial change in the lessee accounting. So friends, let me tell you the story about the USA. In 2005, when the staff of Securities and Exchange Commission, like in India, we have SEBI, we have Stock Exchange, they have Securities and Exchange Commission for listed companies. So when they were looking at the balance sheet, they found that $3 trillion worth of assets and liabilities were sitting outside the balance sheet. And why it is so, let me explain you. For example, Neha has purchased a car from her own funds for rupees 10 lakh, right? Neha has purchased a car from her own funds for rupees 10 lakh. So tell me, what was the treatment under AS 19 or old AS 17? AS 19 or old IND AS 17. So old IND AS 17 means old, IND AS 17 means old, IAS 17 also. If Neha has purchased a car from her own funds for rupees 10 lakh, then no lease accounting. What Neha will do? Recognize the asset and reduce her own funds. Yes or no? Neha will recognize the car, na?
Yes, sir.
Recognize the asset and reduce her own funds because she has purchased from own funds. Her cash will go down, bank will go down, okay, and she will recognize the asset. Chitra has purchased a car by taking a car loan for rupees 10 lakhs. What Chitra will do? She will also recognize the asset, but this is not from the own funds. This is not from the own funds. Then what she will do?
Credit to the loan account.
Recognize the asset and liability. Recognize the asset and liability both, right? So on the balance sheet, on one side she will recognize the asset, on the other side she will recognize the liability. Now, Chitra approached to the bank, but she did not get the loan. So what she does? So Mamta, now let's talk about Mamta. Mamta has taken a car on lease basis for 3 years. So instead of paying an EMI on the loan, Mamta decided to pay a lease rent on the car. So she has taken a car on a lease basis. What she will do? Tell me what she will do. Will she recognize the asset? No. No asset and liability. Will she recognize any liability? No asset and liability. No asset and liability. Right? Why? No asset and
Lease.
liability? Because it is an operating lease. It is an operating lease, right? No asset and liability since it is an operating lease for 3 years, right? And rent expense to be recognized in the P&L, recognized in the P&L. Now, friends, tell me one thing. In all these 3 cases, whether Neha has purchased a car, Neha is one entity, and she purchased a car from her own funds for rupees 10 lakh. Chitra has purchased a car from taking a bank loan, and Mamta has taken a car on a lease basis. In all these 3 scenarios, first of all, tell me, Neha, Chitra, and Mamta, all these 3 ladies, whether they are able to use the car or not. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Do they?
They're able to use the cars.
Yes. Do they have a right to use the car?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. They have the right to use the car also. They have all the right to use the car, right? The car is with them. Okay. In the first case, the capital has been reduced. In the first case, the cash and bank has been reduced. In the second case, a liability came in the balance sheet for which Chitra is paying a EMI on a monthly basis. In the third case, Mamta is paying a car lease rent. Instead of paying an EMI, Mamta has started paying a lease rental. Lease rental. Now, what was the question and what was the problem in front of the Securities and Exchange Commission staff? They found that when a company is taking an asset, buying an asset by taking a loan, the company is showing assets and liability both. But when the company is taking an asset on lease, the company is neither showing an asset nor showing a liability until and unless it is on finance lease. फाइनेंस लीज आपको पता है ना, AS19 में आपने पढ़ा था फाइनेंस लीज के बारे में, या?
Yes.
So finance lease means a lease which is for the substantial period of time, okay, or where the lease rental, the present value of the lease rental is substantially equal to the value of the asset. So friends, in USA, America, lease is another prominent source of financing. So they found that if a company is buying an asset by taking a loan, and if the company will not repay the loan, the bank has all the right to repurchase the asset. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
For example, in home loan, when you are taking a home loan, you are depositing the original registry paper of the flat or of the land to the bank. If you will default in paying an EMI, the bank will forfeit, the bank will repurchase your asset. Okay. If you will not pay the lease rental, the tenant, the landlord will also repurchase the asset. The landlord will give you notice and the landlord will tell you, please vacate my house, please return my asset. Yes.
Yes.
So typically speaking, and what is a lease? When you are not able to pay the EMI on loan, or instead of paying an equated monthly installment, instead of paying an installment of loan, you are paying a monthly lease rental, right? And in both the cases, whether you are taking an asset on a loan or you are taking an asset on a lease, in both the cases, you are getting a right to use the asset. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
If you are And let's say, Neha, if you are living in a rented accommodation, okay, if you are living in a rented accommodation, so you are paying a rental, whether your landlord can come to your house without giving any notice. I mean to say, for example, he wanted to come to your house at 5 a.m. in the morning. Will straight away he come to your house and knock the door? Is he allowed? Answer is no.
No,
Answer is
sir.
no. Answer is no, because why no? Because you are paying a rental. Okay, you have all the right to have a peaceful stay. You have all the right to use that accommodation, use that house, while the landlord is the owner of the house, but he don't have right to enter into his house without your permission when you have taken the house on a rental basis. Is that logical or not logical?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you agree
Logical.
with me?
Also.
Yes, sir.
Are you agree with me, Bibu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So friends, typically speaking, the assets which are taken on a loan basis or the assets which are taken on a rental basis, there is no major difference from the perspective of right of use asset. From the perspective of right of use asset. Even though if you have taken a car on a loan basis or if you have taken a flat on a loan basis, you can't sell that car or a flat until and unless you will repay the loan. Likewise, so you have a right to use the asset even if you are taking on a loan, and in case of lease, you are also having a right of use the asset. So the regulator, the staff of Securities Exchange Commission, they found that if a company is taking a loan and then buying an asset, and the company which is taking the asset on a lease basis, there is a big difference between these two companies in terms of their balance sheet. The balance sheet of these two companies are not comparable, while both the companies have a right to use the asset. And that's how the brainstorming on IFRS 16 on lease accounting standard was started in 2005. That something is not right. Something is not right. Okay. Then the second instance. In 2008, Sir David Tweedy, in 2008, he was the chairman of International Accounting Standard Board. I'm talking about IFRS. In 2008, he was traveling to Canada for attending a conference. So when he sit on a plane, he sit on an aircraft, and the CFO of that company, that airline company, was also sitting next to him. So he has asked whether this aircraft is on the balance sheet of the airline company. So the chairman of International Accounting Standard Board asked the CFO of that airline company that in the plane which I'm sitting and the plane which took me to Canada, is it in your balance sheet? Is it on your balance sheet? The CFO denied. No, sir. This aircraft is not on our balance sheet. Tell me what could be the reason why the aircraft is not on the airline balance sheet? Because of the
Lease.
Yes.
They took it on lease.
Yes, Chitra, you are right, because that aircraft was taken on a lease. Their aircraft was taken on lease. You're right, Megha. And you are absolutely right, Ayush. Okay, absolutely right. Because that aircraft in aviation company, in airline company, most of the aircrafts were taken on a lease basis. So the chairman of International Accounting Standard Board was surprised. He thought the biggest asset of an airline company, right, on which the airline company is living, which is the bread and butter of airline company, by which the airline company is earning money and paying to the employees, vendor, supplier, etc. The main asset of the airline company is not on the balance sheet of the airline company. Okay. So he found that there is some problem. And probably lease accounting needs to be relooked. Lease accounting standard needs to be revisited, right? So in 2008, he made a statement. And you know what was that statement? The statement was that the chairman of International Accounting Standard Board told the biggest dream, the biggest dream of my life before I die, the biggest dream of my life before I die is to fly in an aircraft which is on an airline balance sheet. What was the statement? The biggest dream of my life is to fly in an aircraft which is on an airline balance sheet. So friends, with that in 2005 and 2008, with that, the brainstorming on the lease accounting standard was started globally. And friends, in 2016, in IFRS, International Accounting Standard Board came with a new standard on leases, and they told that effective from 1st January 2019, the old IAS 17 on leases will be deleted, and effective from 1st January 2019, new IFRS 16 will be notified, right? So friends, this new IFRS 16, what this new IFRS 16 has done, so let me tell you. And the new IFRS 16 has changed the entire gamut of lease accounting. There is a major change in lease accounting in the new IFRS 16 and eventually in Ind AS 116. In India, what we did, when in IAS 17 was deleted and IFRS 16 was issued, we have also deleted Ind AS 17 and we have issued Ind AS 116. And what was the biggest change in the new IFRS 16 and the new Ind AS 116? Let me tell you. Let me show you. Okay, the biggest change. Okay. So friends, first of all, quickly, let me tell you what was the change. So what change Ind AS 116 brought in? What change Ind AS 116 brought in? क्या चेंज आया Ind AS 116 में? What was the change in Ind AS 116? So let me tell you. Just hold on for a minute. So this Ind AS 116 gives a single lease model. Single lease model. What is meant by single lease model? Single lease model. Single lease means what was the two type of leases you have read in AS
Finance
19?
lease and operating lease.
Operating lease and finance lease. So there is no classification. There is no classification of operating lease and finance lease from lessee perspective. Friends, in this standard, there is no classification. There is no classification between finance lease and operating lease. There is no classification between finance lease and operating lease from the lessee perspective, right? Single lease model. I'll talk more on that. Don't not to worry. I'll talk more on that, right? So there is no classification between operating lease and finance lease from the lessee perspective. Okay. And friends, what we were doing in the old standard, let me tell you, with the help of the accounting entry. For example, Akshay has taken a car on yearly lease rental of rupees 1 lakh per annum for a period of 3 years. Example. Akshay has taken a car on lease basis for, instead of Akshay, let me use this example only, right? Copy. Mamta has taken a car on lease basis for 3 years at a rental of rupees 1 lakh per annum. So let me tell you what is the accounting in AS 19. What is the accounting in AS 19, guys? क्या accounting होगी AS 19 में बताओ फटाफट.
Rent account debit to bank account on each year.
Every year lease rent expense account debit, lease rent expense account debit to bank account, to bank. What is the amount? 1 lakh rupees. Are you okay with this accounting? Right? It's an operating lease. Car is for 3 years. The life of the car is 10 year or 15 year. So in AS 19, lease rent expense account debit to bank account. Are you okay with this accounting? Yes. Ind AS 17. Now coming to Ind AS 17. Now coming to Ind AS 17. Ind AS 17. Old version of lease account, lease standard, not applicable as on today, right? It is not applicable as on today. So what this standard talks about, what this standard gives you the accounting, this standard also gives you the same accounting. This standard also gives you the same accounting, right? Same accounting. Lease rent expense account debit to bank account. Now, what about IFRS 16 or Ind AS 116? What about IFRS 16 or Ind AS 116? Ind AS 116. By learning Ind AS, you are also learning IFRS. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
If you are a chartered accountant from ICAI India, if you have learned all Ind AS, believe me, in less than 2 hours, you are master in IFRS also. You can work with UK companies, US companies, you can work with 160 countries. You can work in 160 countries. The companies from 160 countries, right? If you have understood Ind AS financial reporting very well, you can work in 160 countries in terms of accounting, auditing, reporting. Okay. Yes. Now, what about Ind AS 116? Let me tell you that what change Ind AS 116 brought in. Ind AS 116 says that IFRS 16 says that even if the lessee has taken an asset on a lease basis, what lessee is getting? Lessee is getting a right. Which kind of right lessee is getting? Which kind of right lessee is getting? Tell me.
Right to use
Right.
the asset.
Right to use the asset. Right to use the asset. The lessee is getting the right to use the asset. Correct, Ayush? Yes, right to use the asset. Sanjay is very silent today. Sanjay, are you there?
Yes. Yes. I'm
Yeah, right to use the asset. So friends, now let me tell you what is the accounting in Ind AS 116. So Ind AS 116 says that you have to recognize right to use the asset on the day one. You have to recognize the right to use the asset on the day one, right? What is the accounting entry need to be passed? Right to use account debit, right to use account debit, and to what? On the day one, on the date of commencement of the lease, right to use account debit to what? क्या करें? पेमेंट तो करी नहीं.
Lease liability.
To lease liability. It is just like a finance lease accounting. You remember finance lease accounting in AS 19, where you are recognizing leasehold asset account debit to lease liability account. सुना सुना लग रहा है, सुना सुना लग रहा है?
सुना सुना लग रहा है सर.
ब्लैंक वाला या हर्ड वाला?
हर्ड वाला सर.
Heard wala? Yes. So are you guys able to remember that AS 19 finance lease concept in lessee accounting? You are recognizing leasehold asset and you are crediting lease liability, right? And every year you are paying lease rental, by which the lease liability keep on reducing, and you are also depreciating leasehold asset. you are also adding interest on the lease liability. कुछ याद आया? नहीं आया तो
Yes,
कोई
sir.
बात नहीं, अभी और आ
Yes, sir.
जाएगा, right? If you are not able to remember, not to worry, you will be able to remember very well when I complete this concept. So friends, now the question is, sir, what is the number? Right to use asset account debit to lease liability. What is the number here? So friends, standard says that you have to capitalize right to use asset on the basis of present value of lease rentals. Present value of lease rental. Let's assume discount rate of 10%. Let's assume discount rate of 10%. Discount rate of 10%. So now let's compute the present value of the lease rental. Present value of the lease rental. So what is the accounting year, amount, present value factor, and present value? Year 1, 2, 3. How many years? 3 years. 3 साल है ना? 3 years are there. Amount,
Yes,
how?
sir.
What is the amount?
Yes, 3 years.
What is the
1
amount?
lakh.
1 lakh
1
each
lakh.
year.
1 lakh.
1 lakh every year. 1 lakh every year is the amount. Okay. What is the present value factor? Assuming, if the question is silent, assuming that the payment is made at the end of the year. So what is my present value factor? 1 divided by 1.1. This divided by 1.1. This divided by 1.1. Sorry. Divided by 1. Okay. Can you help me with the answer?
So it's 2,48,685 in all together.
Okay. No, what is the answer?
Cost will be 90,909.
Okay. Let me multiply this. This is the total. My control is not working. Control is not my control. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So are you okay with this present value accounting? We have done so many times present value accounting, right? So right to
Yes,
use
sir.
account debit, right to use asset account debit to lease liability account, right to use asset account debit, right to use asset account debit, right to use asset account debit to lease liability account, right? So the nomenclature is right to use asset, okay, right of use asset. Let me write this as a right of use asset, okay, account debit to lease liability accounting. Are you okay with this entry? Are you okay with
Yes.
this calculation? So on the
Yes,
day
sir.
one, on the commencement date of the lease, on the day one, you haven't paid any rental. You will pay rental at the end of first year, second year, and third year. And on the day one, you will capitalize an asset and you will credit a liability, right? And this is the present value of the lease rental for 3 years. What is this? This is the present value of the lease rental. This is the present value of 3 lakh rupees. What is the present value of 3 lakh rupees? 248,685 is the present value of 3 lakh rupee. So now, how this 248,685 asset, how this asset will become zero at the end of the lease term? ये zero कैसे होगा?
While
How it will
making
be
payment
zero?
every year.
Yeah.
Every year we will pay 1 lakh rupees, and also we will add the interest 10% of the
So
liability.
Saminathan, I have asked about asset. I have asked how this asset, you have capitalized an asset in the balance sheet. In the balance sheet, there is an asset and there is a liability. My question is, this is the balance sheet, right?
Okay, sir. As I said, we have 3 years, sir. We have to divide by 3 years. We have to provide depreciation for each year.
So in the balance sheet, there is a asset, there is a right to use asset in the balance sheet, and there is a lease liability in the balance sheet. So my question is, how this asset and how this liability will become zero? That is my sawal. So guys, Ayush, tell me how this asset will become zero. Tell me how this asset will become zero. कैसे zero होगा asset? How the asset will become zero, Ayush? Help me here. Friends, this asset will be depreciated over the lease term. This asset will be depreciated over the lease term. What is the accounting entry? Depreciation account debit. What is the accounting entry for depreciation? What is the accounting entry for depreciation?
Depreciation account debit
right
to
of
asset,
use.
right of
To
use asset.
to accumulated depreciation. फिर वो right of use जैसे पीपी में होता है. So
Yes,
gross
sir.
block minus accumulated depreciation, right? Right. Depreciation account debit to accumulated depreciation. Okay. Now, what is the depreciation in the first year, second year, and third year? First year, second year, and third year. What is the depreciation in the first year, second year, and third year? Tell me. The depreciation is this divided by 3. As simple as that.
Yeah, 82,867. 82,895, right?
82,895. Yes. So, correct. What is the total? Is equal to sum of these 3. Whether your ROU asset will become zero, whether your right of use asset becomes zero or not after 3
Yes,
years.
sir.
Yes, sir. It will become.
After 3 years, it will be zero. Just like a finance lease concept, friends. Just like a finance lease concept in accounting standard 19. But here you are applying this concept to all the leases because there is no classification operating lease or finance lease. Now asset has become zero. What is the treatment of liability? Now you need to prepare a lease liability schedule. You need to prepare a lease liability schedule. Lease liability schedule. Sir, what is this lease liability schedule? Sir, ये lease liability schedule क्या है? What is this lease liability schedule? So year. So year. Opening balance of liability. Opening balance of liability. Interest. At the rate of what percent? 10%. Payment.
Yes.
And closing balance. Closing balance. Payment. And closing balance. Okay. And closing balance. So what is my opening balance? What is my opening balance of liability?
248,685.
90,909.
248,685 is the opening balance of the lease liability. This is the entry I have passed, na? Right of use asset account debit to
Yes.
lease liability.
Yes.
Yeah. So on the day
Yes.
one, I have shown you the balance sheet also. I have shown you the balance sheet. In the balance sheet, my asset is what? My asset is in the balance sheet, my asset is 248,685 and my liability is 248,685 on the day one. This is my balance sheet. Yeah. This is my balance sheet. Any doubt up to this part?
No,
Yeah.
no doubt.
So opening balance. Now, opening balance of lease liability is 248,685. Now just think about one thing. You have recognized a liability which is present value of 3 lakh, present value of future lease rentals, 248,685. But how much you are going to pay in 3 years?
3 lakh.
3 lakh. You are going to pay 3 lakh in 3 years. So what is the difference between 3 lakh and 248,685?
It's the interest component.
It's the interest component, as simple as that. What you guys have done, you have discounted 3 lakh rupees to present value. So when you unwind the discount, there is an interest cost. Simple. So 248,685 multiplied by 10%. In the first year, what you will do in the first year? End में क्या होगा? You will make a payment. How much payment in the first year?
1 lakh rupees.
1 lakh rupees of payment. What is your closing balance? Your closing balance is 248,685 plus 248,609 minus 1 lakh. Now this will become your opening balance. What is the interest? What is the interest? This is the interest. This is the payment. Again, this is the payment. This is the closing balance. Okay. Now on the third year, this will become the opening balance. This is the interest. Now your payment is this much. What is your closing balance? What is your closing balance? 0. Has your liability become 0 at the end
Yes,
of the
sir.
third year?
Yes.
Yes. So how much interest you have paid? You have paid an interest of 51,315. How much payment you have made? 3 lakh. So what is the interest net of payment is 248,685. Have you understood this lease liability schedule?
Yes.
So what is the next entry? What is the next entry? So you have recognized an asset or liability. You have charged depreciation for 3 years. Now what about liability? You have to pass an accounting entry. Interest cost account debit. Interest cost account debit. Right, Saminathan? Interest cost account debit to
Lease liability
lease liability. To lease liability.
each year.
Each year. Okay. To lease liability. What is the first year interest? 2486,9. What is the second year interest? 17355. What is the third year interest?
9091.
9091. Okay. Right. So what is the total? What is the total? This plus this plus this. What is the next entry? Lease liability account debit. Lease liability account.
To bank.
You will pay money also, na? Lease liability pay account debit to bank. Alternatively, you can pass an accounting entry lease liability to lessor to bank. Okay, that you can also pass that accounting entry. Lease liability to bank. In 3 year, what should be the total expense? In 3 year, what should be the total expense?
3 lakhs.
The total expense should be, in a lease period, the total expense should be equivalent to the amount paid. यही होना चाहिए ना?
Yes, sir.
What is the outflow from the pocket of this company? What is the outflow from pocket of Mamta?
3 lakhs.
3 lakh rupees. 3 lakh should be the expense. 3 lakh should be the expense in the P&L, right? So what is the expense in the P&L? Now tell me, what is the total expense in the P&L? Expense in the profit and loss. Expense in the P&L. What is the expense in the P&L, guys?
3 lakhs.
Interest cost.
Each year.
Depreciation, interest cost. What is the depreciation interest cost in the first year, second year, third year? So in the first year, your depreciation is 82,895 and same, right? And it is same in the second and third year also. Correct? What is the interest cost in the first year? 24,869. And so on and so forth, right? What is total? This plus this plus this. And so what is the first year expense charged to P&L? 1,07,764. Second year, 1,02,50, and third year, 91,986. In total 3 year, 3 lakh rupees. Okay. And what should be the expense to be charged in the P&L in case of the old? This is the expense in P&L H per Ind AS 116. H per Ind AS 116. Tell me, what is the expense in the P&L H per AS 19? What is the expense in the P&L H per AS 19?
Interest
Lease
cost.
Only
rental for
interest
each
cost.
year.
Then
What is the expense in the P&L H per AS 19?
Lease rental.
Lease rent
Each
debit
year.
and
Lease
interest.
rent expense. Lease rent expense. What is the expense in every year? सिंपल
One
ना,
lakh.
1 लाख रुपए का रेंट बुक करोगे ना हर साल, और
Yes,
क्या
sir.
करोगे? सिंपल, 1 लाख रुपए every year, 1 lakh rupee every year, and the total is 3 lakh. So you can see, in case of Ind AS 116, in the earlier year, in the first year, the expense is higher. It keeps on reducing by year to year, right? Why? Because of the finance cost. The depreciation is static. Okay. Now, what is the expense in P&L? H per Ind AS 17, old Ind AS. H per Ind AS 17, old Ind AS.
Sir, same as per AS 19.
Same H per AS 19. Exactly. Same H per AS. Same H per AS 19. Where is Ind AS 17? Yes. Right? So friends, have you found the difference between AS 19, old Ind AS 17 and new Ind AS 116 and IFRS 16? Yeah?
Yes.
Have you found the difference? Right?
Yes.
So in this case, what this new Ind AS 116 has brought in, this new Ind AS 116 says that when you are taking an asset on a lease basis, you are getting a right. Like an intangible asset. So you have already completed Ind AS 38. The government is giving you a license. So what you are getting? You are getting a piece of paper. By getting a piece of paper, what you are getting? You are getting a right. You are getting a right. Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Right to
Yes.
use.
राइट ही तो मिलता है आपको. इंटेंजिबल एसेट में लाइसेंस जो मिलता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल द गवर्नमेंट इज गिविंग अ ब्रॉडकास्टिंग लाइसेंस टू नेटफ्लिक्स और टू दूरदर्शन. सो what these broadcasting companies are getting? They are getting a right to telecast, a right to broadcast. Okay. So in this case, don't you think if you are paying a lease rental, if you are entering into commitment today that I will pay you the lease rental for next 3 years, don't you think you are getting a right to use that asset for next 3 years? So standard
Yes.
says that if an airline company is taking an aircraft on a lease basis for 5 years, so they are getting a right to use the aircraft for 5 years. They have all the right. So that aircraft has to be capitalized in the balance sheet of that lessee, right? Now the question is, sir, the aircraft is, for example, the cost of the aircraft is, for example, 100 crores. So, or the cost of the car is 20 lakhs. So will we capitalize at 20 lakhs or 50 crore or 100 crores? Answer is no. You have to capitalize not at the value of the asset. You have to capitalize at the value of the right of use of the asset. And what is the value of right of use?
Present value of the future payments.
Present value of the lease rental. Present value of the lease rental. Okay. For example, I am the owner of a house. I have a house in Lakshmi Nagar. Have you heard about the place called Lakshmi Nagar in Delhi?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, this place is called as a CA ka Gad. This place is called as a CA's place, Chartered Accountant's place. Okay. Friends, let's say I have a house there and the value of the house is 1 crore rupees. I am the owner of the house. At what value I will show my house in the balance sheet? 1 crore rupees.
1 crore.
1 crore. And and what is the nature of this house in my balance sheet? It's a
Asset.
Is it
PP. It's a
PP.
PP, property, plant and equipment. It's a PP, property, plant and equipment. Yes, PP. And what I'll do, I'll keep on charging a depreciation on that house for a period of 3 years. Sorry, for a period of life of the asset, not 3 years, for the period of life of the asset. For example, the building has a life, the house has a life of 50 years. I'll keep on depreciating. Now, Sanjay came to me and Sanjay came to Delhi for pursuing his CA. So he wanted that house on a lease basis. So I have given him the house on a lease basis. for a period of 5 years. Okay, because Sanjay also, after becoming a chartered accountant, he want to continue his employment in Delhi. He want to start his employment in Delhi. So he took the house from me for a period of 5 years on a lease basis. Every year he will pay a lease rental of 1 lakh rupee. This is as per the contract. So tell me, I have recognized property, plant and equipment at 1 crore rupees. At what value Sanjay will recognize and what nature of asset Sanjay will recognize in the balance sheet?
The right of uses.
Right of use asset. Sanjay will not recognize building. Sanjay will not recognize property, plant and equipment. Sanjay will recognize right of use asset. And whether Sanjay will recognize that right of use asset at 1 crore rupee?
No.
Only lease rent amount.
Sanjay
Present
will
value.
recognize
Present value of
Sanjay will recognize the right of use on the basis of present value of 5 lakh rupee. 1 lakh rupee rental every year for a period of 5 years. So Sanjay will recognize the right of use asset on the basis of present value of 5 years. Okay, present value of 1 lakh rupee every year for a period of 5 years. Okay, so friends, why? Because Sanjay is getting a right to use that house. So he will capitalize the right. I will capitalize the property, plant and equipment, the building. Right? So friends, this is one of the major change. And after this change, let me tell you, after this change, when this change came, after this change, which are the companies, which are the sector, which are the industries which are largely impacted? The biggest sector is the airline company. The biggest sector is the airline company. Telecom companies, these airline companies have the aircraft on a lease basis. So before introduction of IFRS 16 or Ind AS 116, right? These airline companies were not having the right of use asset in the balance sheet. But when this IFRS 16 came or Ind AS 116 came, these airline companies have a huge amount of right of use asset in the balance sheet. A huge amount of right of use asset in the balance sheet. Okay. Friends, telecom companies, if I talk about telecom companies, so all these telecom companies, right? And let me give you a real life scenario. Have you seen the tower, telecom tower?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Indus
sir.
Towers.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I was working with Indus Towers Limited. It's a large listed company. Friends, when I left for my home on 31st March 2019, when I left for my home on 31st March 2019, this company Indus Tower Limited was a debt-free entity. But when I went in the morning, when I went to my office on 1st April 2019 at 10 a.m. in the morning, this company has become a debt company. ये कैसे हुआ? On 31st March 2019, the company was a debt-free company. And when after 12 hours, when I went to my office on 1st April 2019, this company became a debt company on 1st April 2019. How this magic has happened? Whether the company has taken a loan overnight?
No, it had to
No,
recognize
sir.
lease
Lease
liability.
liability.
It is because of lease liability, friends, because of Ind AS, because of Ind AS 116, the company has the towers on a pan-India basis. The company has the towers all over India, and these towers are on a rental site. Whether it is a ground-based tower or there is a rooftop tower, the company has taken those premises on a lease basis, right? In the old Ind AS 17 or IAS 17, these sites which are taken on a rental basis, these were like operating lease. And the company was debiting rent expense in P&L and crediting the bank. That's all. But when Ind AS 116 came, the company had to capitalize right of use asset and the company had to credit lease obligation. Right? So this company on 1st April 2019, this company has capitalized 2000 crore of right of use asset, and the company has to credit 2000 crore of lease liability. So friends, these are the companies which have a major impact due to Ind AS 116, airline company, oil and gas, retail industry, Big Bazaar, Reliance Fresh. These retail industries have a lot of chain of stores, and all these stores are on a rental basis in the malls, in the big buildings, right? Telecom companies, IT companies, these sectors have a major impact of Ind AS 116. Shall I show you the balance sheet of Indigo Airline? Shall I show you the balance sheet of Indigo Airline? दिखाऊं मैं आपको?
Yes.
उसमें
Yes,
right of
sir.
use asset का number दिखाऊं? Okay. Just give me a second. Let me open the balance sheet of Indigo Airlines. Just allow me a minute. Friends, I hope this Indigo balance sheet is visible to all of you. Is it visible?
Yes. Yes.
India by
Yes.
Indigo.
Yes, sir.
This is the latest annual report, India by Indigo. Let me take you to the balance sheet. Yes. Standalone balance sheet. Okay. Non-current asset. These numbers are in millions. Can you see the number of right of use asset? What is the number of right of use asset? 49,305 crore.
Sir, more
Close to
than 2/3 of
50,000
total
crores.
non-current assets.
Yeah?
It's more than 2/3 of its total non-current assets, sir.
Yes, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yes. So 50,000 crores, roughly 50,000 crores. What number I'm talking about? 50,000 crores is the number of right of use asset. So tell me, had this Ind AS 116 never been introduced, so prior to 1st April 2019 means when you look at the balance sheet of Indigo Airlines, as on 31st March 2019, you will not find such big numbers. You will not find such big numbers. Okay. And what is the total of the balance sheet size? The total of the balance sheet size is 1,15,900 crores. 1,16,000 crores. So 1,16,000 crore is the total balance sheet, and 50,000 crore is only right of use asset. So the 45% of the entire balance sheet is sitting, half of the balance sheet is sitting on right of use asset. Half of the balance sheet is sitting on the right of use asset. And the lease liability, you can see the lease liability, 55,000 crore is the lease liability, non-current liability, and current liability is 10,000 crore. Means lease payments within 1 year and lease payments beyond 1 year. So the total lease liability is 65,000 crores and the asset is 50,000 crores. Why there is a difference between the asset and the liability number?
Due to
Interest cost, sir.
Yes, because the asset is depreciated on a straight line basis and the liability is compounding. Okay, like I have shown you, na interest cost, it keep on decreasing, but depreciation is static. Correct. So due to that interest cost, this lease liability number and right of use asset is different. Okay, right? Is that clear? So are you able to appreciate the impact of Ind AS 116? Are you able to
Yes.
appreciate? Yes.
Yes.
Talking about the depreciation and interest cost, let me show you the P&L also. Right. See, the aircraft and engine rental. So these are those equipment which the company has taken on a short-term lease. I will talk about those aspects. Okay. I will talk about those aspects. Park these aspects for some time. These are not meeting the definition of a lease. But what is your depreciation? Your depreciation is 8,600 crores. What is your finance cost? 5,000 crores. Can you see that? 5,000 crore, 8,000 crores, 11,000 crore is the depreciation and finance cost on the right of use asset. Okay. So can you see the impact of Ind AS 116 on this company? Yeah. The largest airline company of India. Yes. I hope.
Yes.
I hope you are finding it good when you see the annual report of a large listed company. Yes, you found it good.
Yes.
You
Yes, sir.
understood
Yes,
it
sir.
very
Very
well.
interesting.
Yeah.
Very
Very
insightful.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, friends. So now let's move further. So now we understood why it was changed. We understood what had changed. We understood what is the major accounting, right? I'm just setting the context and I will cover this standard in 5 to 6 classes. In 5 classes as of now, but we will see if one more class will require, I will request ICAI depending on the sums, depending on the question which we are going to solve. Okay. So friends, we understood now that right of use asset is going to be recognized and lease liability needs to be recognized. Okay. Now friends, let's move to the standard. Now let's move to the standard. Okay. So friends, first of all, let's talk about a lease contract. Let's talk about a lease contract. Friends, what is a lease contract? What is meant by a lease? Lease is a contract. It's an agreement. Agreement enforceable at law. Lease is a contract. Okay. It's a contract between two or more parties. Yes or no? It's a contract between two or more parties. And what is the name of these parties? What is the name of these parties?
Lessor and lessee.
Lessor and
Lessor
lessee.
and lessee. Lessor and lessee. Okay. Lessor and lessee. Yeah. So Ayush, I will speak on the interest part. I have just set the context. Now I am getting more deeper into each and every aspect. This 116 is a very lengthy standard. Okay. So that was only an aerial view. So after having this context setting, at least you guys are able to know that what we are going to learn, right? Even this right of use asset calculation and lease liability calculation has also so many parts. I will cover those parts gradually and subsequently in my session. Okay. Lease is a contract. Contract means an agreement enforceable at law. It's a contract between two or more parties, which are lessor and lessee. Okay. Where these parties are getting a right to use of an asset. Right? I'm talking about the old definition. I'm talking about the old definition. What is the old definition? Lease is a contract between two or more parties where the party is getting a right to use of an asset for a period of time in exchange for a consideration. So what are the essence of the lease contract? Lease contract, it's a contract between two or more parties where one of the party is getting an asset for the purpose of use, okay, and for a specified period of time, okay, and for an exchange of consideration, okay, which is lease rent, okay. The time period is very important, right? Lease term, which is known as a lease term, okay. Consideration, lease rent is also important, lease term is also important, and using the asset is also important, right? There should be a contract between two or more parties. Okay. So friends, the old definition of Ind AS 17 or AS 19 was talking about a lease is a contract between two or more parties for transferring a right of use of an asset, for a period of time in exchange for a consideration. This Ind AS 116 talks about a lease is a contract between two or more parties for transferring the right to control. Instead of saying a right to use, it is saying the right to control the use. For transferring a right to control the use of, instead of saying an asset, it is saying an identified asset. It is saying an identified asset. It is saying an identified asset. Have you found this word right to control the use and identified asset in the old accounting standard or old Ind AS? Probably you haven't read old Ind AS, but in accounting standard, have you found this word? Answer is no. The old Ind AS, old IFRS, old and our own accounting standard, it is only talking about right to use. It is not talking about right to control the use. And it is only talking about asset. It is not talking about identified asset. Okay. So friends, this is very, 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 very important to understand the right to control the use, the meaning of right to control the use. Right. So we will discuss this separately. It is very important to understand the meaning of identified asset. How an asset is different from an identified asset. It is very important to understand how an asset is different from identified asset. Okay, we will discuss this. Period of time means lease term. We will discuss the lease term also. And consideration means lease payment. We will discuss lease payment also. These four aspects we are going to cover in detail as a first thing. Sounds good? Sounds good? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So right to control the use of an identified asset for a period of time in exchange for a consideration. Okay. And believe me, these are separate detailed topic. I will spend good time in identified asset, in right to control the use, and in period of time and consideration, lease term and lease payments. Okay. Right, my dear friends? That clear? So friends, Ind AS 116, talking about the scope paragraph quickly as a theoretical part. This Ind AS 116, this Ind AS 116 shall be applied to all leases, including leases of right of use asset in a sublease. Okay. So 116 is applicable to all leases, including lease of right of use asset in a sublease. Okay. So we will discuss a concept of sublease also. The concept of sublease, the accounting of sublease was not there in accounting standard, was not there in old Ind AS, but we will discuss this concept in new IFRS 16 or Ind AS 116. Okay. So this one Ind AS 116 is not applicable, negative list is given, is not applicable to leases to explore for or use mineral oil, natural gas and similar non-regenerative resources. Why? Because it is within the scope of Ind AS 106. Leases of biological asset held by lessee. Why? Because this will be covered under Ind AS 41. So leases of mineral resources, natural gases, leases of biological assets, service concession arrangements. Have we discussed public-private partnership, service concession arrangement, toll roads, intangible asset model, financial asset model under Ind AS 115?
Yes.
Have
Yes,
we covered
sir.
that?
Yes.
Yes. Service concession arrangement is also not covered under Ind AS 116. Licenses of intellectual property granted by lessor. It is also covered under Ind AS 115. Right? Rights held by a lessee under licensing agreement. For example, using the item like motion picture film, video recording, plays, manuscript, patent and copyright, these are covered under Ind AS 38. Okay. Right? So on these items, it is covered under the respective standard, but otherwise, for all the leases Ind AS 116 is applicable. For all the leases Ind AS 116 is applicable. So my dear friends, what we are going to cover in this standard as a lease definition, we are going to cover these aspects. So let me give you on the Excel file. This Excel file will help you a lot. Lease contract. So what is my lease contract? My lease contract is equal to right to control the use, right to control the use. Means you are controlling the use. Right to control the use. Right to control the use plus what? Right to control the use plus identified asset. Right to control the use plus identified asset. Okay. Plus identified asset plus what? Plus what? Plus a specified period of time plus specified period of time. And what is the meaning of specified period of time? Lease term. Lease term plus
For consideration.
consideration. Plus consideration. Okay. Plus consideration. Consideration means lease payment. Consideration means lease payments. Okay. So these are the four aspects we are covering in detail, right? By one, we are covering these aspects in detail. I hope it is clear to all of you. So I will start with the concept of identified asset. I will start with the concept of identified asset. What is meant by identified asset? Okay. So let's start with the concept of identified asset. Friends, what is meant by identified asset? For an asset to be identified asset, two conditions should be satisfied. The asset has to be explicitly or implicitly written in the contract. The asset has to be explicitly or implicitly written in the contract, mentioned in the contract, covered in the contract. Have you seen any lease contract? Have you seen any lease contract, rent agreement?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen anyone else? Have you seen
Rent
any lease
agreement
contract?
has seen, sir.
Yes.
Rent agreement you have seen. In rent agreement, how it is written, how it is drafted as rent agreement. In rent agreement, it is drafted, for example, Akshay is taking a house on a lease basis, on a rental basis. When he entered into lease agreement, the lease agreement says that the first party, Akshay Agarwal, being a lessee, and the second party, Alok Garg, being a lessor, right? He has agreed to let out his house, has agreed to rent, has agreed to has agreed to give his house to Mr. Akshay Agarwal, lessee, bearing his house number A802, 8th floor, Premier Urban Society, Sector 15, Gurgaon, Haryana, 1220001, whatever. Right? So can you see the property which has been given on a rental basis, the property which has been given on a rent basis, the complete address of that property is captured in the lease contract, right? Means the lease contract is explicitly written in the the asset number, the asset identification is explicitly written in the contract, right or wrong? For example, if you will take the car on a lease basis, the registration number of the car, the chassis number of the car, it will also be written in the contract. Means the asset is explicitly written in the contract. Okay. What is meant by implicit? What is meant by implicit? Implicit means while it is not explicitly written in the contract, but let's say there is a company, okay, and company has one factory only, and the company has let out that factory. The company has given the factory on a lease basis to one of the tenant, to one party. So even though the factory address is not written in the contract, but if the company has only one factory which has been given on a lease basis, it is implied that the factory which is owned by the company has been given on a rental basis. Correct? So the point is, number one, for an asset to be considered as an identified asset, that asset has to be mentioned in the lease contract explicitly, or the asset can be identified implicitly. That is number one. Number two, the supplier should not, friends, in this standard, you will find the word supplier and customer. What is meant by supplier? What is meant by supplier?
Who is
Lesser.
giving asset? Lesser.
Supplier means lesser. And what is meant by customer?
Lessee.
Lessee.
Customer means lessee. Okay. So in this standard, you will find the word supplier and customer, and you will be able to understand why the word supplier and customer is used in so many places. Okay. But for your purpose, supplier means lessor, customer means lessee. That's all. Okay. So friends, identified asset, for the lease asset to become an identified asset, for a lease asset to be an identified asset, it has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract, right? The asset will not be considered as identified asset if the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset. Sir, what does this mean? If the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset, what does this mean? If the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset. So let me tell you. So a public company, a listed company, a government company, or a public company, they have taken 5 cars on a lease basis. They have taken 5 cars on a lease basis. 5 Innova Krista car. Okay. And the number of the car, the chassis number, the make and model number, everything was written in the contract. That Innova Krista, make and model, Toyota, 2025, okay, bearing the registration number HR26ES 48979798989992029131. These are the 5 cars explicitly mentioned in the contract. And in the contract, it is also mentioned that the supplier, the lessor of the car, can substitute these cars with the old cars whenever there is an emergency, or whenever there is a need, not an emergency, whenever there is a need, right? The lessor will change the car from the old car. The lessor will deploy 2024 cars and lessor will take 2025 cars. Okay. For example, the lessor got a new contract from a foreign company and they need this car for 15 days for the visit of their delegation. So the lessor got a short-term contract. And the short-term contract is from a foreign delegation. They are coming to India for 15 days, and for that they need these 5 good branded car, new car, and this lessor has a benefit, and lessor has an economic benefit. And what is the economic benefit? For 15 days, he got a good amount of money. Yes or no?
Yes.
He got a good amount of
Yes,
money, right, Mamta? Yes, he will get a good amount of money. लेसोर क्या करेगा? लेसोर 15 दिन के लिए कार निकालेगा कंपनी से, कंपनी में पुरानी कार रखेगा, और क्या करेगा लेसोर? नई कार को यहां लगा देगा 15 दिन के लिए. जब ये काम खत्म हो जाएगा तो लेसोर क्या करेगा? वापस से नई कार को इस कंपनी में लगा देगा, राइट? And you must have seen these kind of things in your day-to-day life also, if there is so I was renovating my house. So there was a dedicated carpenter who was constructing furniture for me. Good carpenter. In between, the interior decorator, the contractor got some assignment and he has to pick those assignment also, pick the new assignment also. So he told me that, sir, only for 7 days, I am pulling this carpenter. I am deploying some new person, some other person, right? Because of some work or whatever XYZ, right? So he has deployed this experienced carpenter at a new place so that the new customer will be happy and the new customer will also give the contract to him, right? So he has pulled that good carpenter, experienced carpenter from me for 7 days and he deployed that new carpenter to a new place, okay, for 7 days. So the point is, my dear friends, in this case, the lessor has a right to substitute or not? The lessor has a right to substitute. Right to substitute means the lessor has a right to exchange. Okay. And tell me whether the lessor is getting an economic benefit also by changing the asset. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. So friends, if the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset throughout the period of use, then it will not be considered as an identified asset. Sir, what is meant by substantive right to substitute? Sir, we understood the meaning of right to substitute, but what is meant by substantive right to substitute? So the right will be considered as a substantive right to substitute if both the following conditions are satisfied. Condition number 1, the lessor has a practical ability to substitute the alternate asset throughout the period of use. Number 1, lessor should have a practical ability to substitute the asset. Number 2, lessor should be economically benefited from doing so. और लेसोर को इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट भी होना चाहिए, इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट भी होना चाहिए. Lessor should have a practical ability to substitute the asset and lessor should have an economic benefit from the substitution as well. For example, out of the 5 Innova cars, the 2025 make and model, 2 cars met with an accident. 2 cars met with an accident. Okay, 2 cars met with an accident. So now the car needs repair. So the lessor has deployed 2 2024 make and model car, right, to meet the service obligation. In this case, whether lessor is getting a benefit by substituting the asset?
No, sir.
Answer is
No.
no. Answer
No,
is
sir.
this is an emergency situation. The lessor is not getting a benefit. Rather, lessor has to incur expense, right? The lessor has lessor 2 cars have been engaged. 1 car has went to the garage for the repair and the 1 car lessor has deployed. Or in every year, the car has to go to the service center for 2 days for the service purpose. So for these 2 days, the lessor is deploying other cars. So whether lessor is getting an economic benefit by deploying the old cars for 2 days?
No, sir. No, sir.
Answer is no. So friends, the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset throughout the period of use, then it will not be considered as a identified asset. Okay, it will not be considered as an identified asset. The rights will be considered as a substantive right to substitute the asset when and only when the lessor has a practical ability to substitute the asset and the lessor would be economically benefited by doing so. The lessor would be economically benefited by substituting the asset. The lessor would be economically benefited by substituting the asset. Is that clear? Is that very much clear?
Clear.
Right? If his rights and obligation to substitute become exercisable only on occurrence or non-occurrence of the event, then his rights are not substantive. Is that clear? Okay. So friends, it's 8:25 now. Let's have a break for 12 minutes and we will start at 8:25, 8:38. We'll start at 8:38. Okay. And then I will discuss some examples and case studies from ICAI study material to make you guys clear this concept. Okay. Let's meet at 8:38. Okay. Let's have a break. Yes. Yeah. So friends, if it is an identified asset, right? Number one condition, it has to be explicit or implicitly mentioned in the contract, and lessor should not have a substantive right to substitute the asset. And friends, why these conditions were given in Ind AS 116? So let me tell you. In Ind AS 116, if I compare with the old standard, you remember in old standard there was a concept of operating lease and finance lease. Old means, let's assume AS 19. Probably you guys have not experienced Ind AS 17, okay? But you know AS 19. AS 19 and Ind AS 17 was same, okay? So friends, in AS 19 or the old Ind AS on leases, it has a operating lease concept, it has a finance lease concept. In operating lease, you are just recognizing an expense, you are not capitalizing the asset. In finance lease, you are capitalizing the asset provided few condition. If few condition will met, then it will become a finance lease, correct? The risk and reward has to be transferred, etc., etc. Many conditions were there. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So means when you have to recognize an asset, that the testing threshold is more wider. Okay. So you have to check a lot of conditions. Since in Ind AS 116 or IFRS 16, the concept of operating lease and finance lease does not exist for the purpose of lessee. From the perspective of lessor, it exists, but from the purpose of lessee, we are only talking about lessee accounting right now. From the perspective of lessee, this operating lease and finance lease concept does not exist. If there is a lease, then you have to capitalize right of use asset, right? You have to capitalize right of use asset. So don't you think if you need to capitalize some asset, if you need to recognize some liability, the threshold for recognition of an asset and liability should be more stringent, right? Otherwise, just to bloaten the balance sheet, just to increase the size of the balance sheet, people will start capitalizing the right of use asset and lease liability. Yes or no? That's why the standard has given some conditions, right? Standard has given some condition. What condition standard has given? Instead of asset, standard has told identified asset, and standard has told it has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract, and lessor should not have a right to substitute. If lessor has a right to substitute the asset, if the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset throughout the period of use, means लेसोर कभी भी एसेट को चेंज कर सकता है. In that case, you will not capitalize the right of use asset. Why? Because it will not be meeting the identified asset. If it is not meeting the identified asset definition, then it is not meeting the definition of a lease contract under Ind AS 116. If it is not meeting the definition under Ind AS 116, then you are not required to, you are not allowed to capitalize right of use asset and lease liability. Is that clear? Is that clear, my dear friends?
Clear.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear or clear?
Clear. Clear.
Very
Clear,
much clear?
Very much clear.
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm giving you a real life example of this identified asset. Real life example of the identified asset. What is the real life example of the identified asset? Let me tell you. Friends, have you gone to airport?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
आप भी सोचते होंगे सर आप कैसी कैसी बातें करते हैं, right? What you are talking about? Everybody has went to airport. There's no big deal. Yes. Have you, when you went to airport, have you went to airport for getting a boarding pass or checking your baggage, submitting your baggage? Have you gone to the boarding counters?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You've gone to the boarding counters also. Very good.
Yes, sir.
Have you seen the counter of the airlines? Indigo, Air India, Vistara, SpiceJet? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Akasa,
Yes, sir.
you must have seen the boarding counters.
Yes.
So whether these airline company and whether the airport belongs to government or these airline companies.
To government.
Government.
Airport is a public property, government, right? Airport is a government property. Means, so how these airline companies are operating means you must have seen the big space they are occupying. So how they are getting such a big space?
On rental basis.
On rental
Lease.
basis. So they have entered into a contract with Airport Authority of India, right? They have entered into a contract with the airport authorities and they are getting 1,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet as per their need, right? It's on a lease basis. It's on a rental basis. It's on a lease basis. Okay. So tell me one thing. Without giving you so much of knowledge and information, I'm straight away asking a question. Whether the space which these airline companies have got from the airports, is it an identified asset? I haven't given you any knowledge. I haven't given you any clue. I'm just asking a straight away question. Is it an identified asset? There is a lease contract. So there is a lease agreement between the airport authority. There is a lease agreement between the airport authority and the airline company. But my question is it an identified asset? Just guess.
I think no.
Yes or no. You can just guess.
No,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, no. Okay, both the answer.
Sir,
Let me give you more information. Yeah.
Yes, sir. If the particular shop is given for that particular airlines to the particular period, then that is identified asset. If the airlines is giving that particular shop for 1 year and changing that shop to another shop in the another year, then that case the controls is with the airport authority. Then that is not the identified asset.
Okay, but the definition of identified asset is for the lease asset to be identified asset, it has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract. The asset will not be considered as an identified asset if the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset, right? So first, it has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract, number one. It has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract, number two. The lessor should not have a substantive right to substitute. This asset will not be considered as an identified asset if the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset. Okay. So let me give you more information now, then we will discuss. Particulars. Airport authority has provided the 1,000 square feet space to ABC airline in front of gate number 5. And you must have seen the gate number, na? Gate number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right?
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes.
and yes. Samanathan, please, can you keep on mute? Okay. So friends, you must have seen the airline counters in front of the gates also. So this airline company, airport authority has provided 1,000 square feet space to ABC airline in front of gate number 5. So tell me whether it is explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract. Explicit or implicit mentioned in the contract.
Explicitly mentioned.
It will be explicitly mentioned in the contract.
Yes, explicit or implicit in the contract. Yes. So in front of gate number 5, 1,000 square feet of space. Okay. 1,000 square feet of space. Yes, it is. It is implicitly or it is explicitly mentioned in the contract. Second, substantive right to substitute. Substantive right to substitute. Substantive right to substitute. Whether airport authority has a substantive right to substitute, it is silent. In the first scenario, it is silent, right? Kuch nahi likha na?
Yes,
So
sir.
we will assume no. We will assume no. Right. For example, if I have given my building to Akshay on a rental basis And I was just silent at that point of time. After 3 months, I will tell Akshay, can you please, from this building, can you move to next building? So Akshay will say, sir, you must have told me in the beginning. If you would have told me in the beginning, probably I would not have entered into the contract with you. Right? Correct? So
Yes, sir.
if it is silent, we will consider that there is no substantive right to substitute the asset to the lessor. Substantive right to substitute the asset with the lessor. Whether lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset? No. Is it an identified asset? In the first case, it is an identified asset. Is
Yes,
it
sir.
an identified asset? है या नहीं है?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, it is an identified asset. Yes, it is an identified asset as per Ind AS. As per Ind AS 116, yes, it is an identified asset. Yes, as per Ind AS 116. Now, second scenario. Airport authority has provided 1000 square feet space to ABC airline in front of gate number 5. The authority can change the location in future as per its discretion. Right? Tomorrow, if the Reliance will come to open the outlet in Hamleys, or to open the outlet Hamleys. Have you seen the Hamleys outlet in the airport? The toys outlet of Reliance? It is with the brand Hamleys. So Reliance told that in front of gate number 5, there is a huge footfall. So I want this Hamleys outlet to open in front of gate number 5. So what airport authority will do? Airport authority will shift the location of ABC airline and airport authority will give the space to Hamleys, or airport authority will give the space to Cafe Coffee Day. If Cafe Coffee Day will come and Cafe Coffee Day wants a space in front of gate number 5 and Cafe Coffee Day is ready to give the premium also. So of course, this airport authority can change the location of ABC airline. It means 1000 square feet area will be given, but it can be changed as per the discretion of airport authority. So friends, first of all, whether it is explicit or implicit in the contract.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
it
sir.
is.
Yes, sir.
It is 1000 square feet in front of gate number 5. Tell me whether substantive right to substitute the asset is lying with the lessor.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Any time, any point of time, it is lying with the lessor throughout the period of use. Yes. Is it an identified asset?
No.
No.
No, sir.
No, it is not an identified asset. It is not an identified asset. It is not an identified asset. It is not an identified asset, right? So if it is not an identified asset, then Ind AS 116 not applicable. Not applicable. If Ind AS 116 not applicable, then what will be the accounting?
Then the lease rental expenses debit to bank account.
Rent expense debit to bank account. That is the accounting. That is the accounting, right? So friends, then it will not be a right of use asset to lease liability accounting. Why? It is Ind AS 116 is not applicable because it is not an identified asset. It has not met the first condition. Then you have to do the expense accrual accounting, normal accounting, expense accrual. And what is the accounting? Rent to bank. Friends, let me take you again to the Indigo airline balance sheet and P&L. I hope Indigo annual report is visible. I'm saying airport is visible. Indigo annual report is visible.
Yes, sir.
And in the Indigo annual report, I will show you the airport. Yeah. So can you see aircraft and engine rentals? Yeah.
Yes, sir. 30,103.
30,000. So what is this? These are those rentals. And when you go to the other expenses, there is some other, in the other expenses, there could be some rental expense also. Let's go to the note number 29. Let's go to note number 29. In note number 29, can you see in other expense there is a rent? 150 crores.
Yes.
What is this rent in an airline P&L?
For the space they have got.
This This rent is what they are paying to the airport authority across the airport in India for the space which they have occupied. Right? So all these are rental for boarding counters. Why? Because practically these airport authorities has a right to substitute the space. Okay. So you will not be surprised. For example, if today you went to Delhi airport and you found that Indigo counter is at gate number 4, after 3 months, when you go to airport, don't be surprised if you found the Indigo counter at gate number 1. Okay, don't be surprised. Why? Because this airport authority has a right to substitute the space. They have the right to substitute the space. Okay, is that clear now? The concept of identified asset is identified now or not
Yes,
identified?
it's
Identified.
Identified.
It's identified. It's identified in your mind. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Identified in your brain.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
According to India's use, change is that clear in mind
That
from
concept
identified.
is substituted by other concepts.
So let me give you one more layman language example. One more example. So a transporter has 100 cars. A transporter has, so let me write the example here. Example. A transporter has a fleet of 100 cars. The company has taken 5 cars on a lease basis. No specific car numbers has been mentioned in the contract. Is it an identified asset?
No.
No, sir.
Is it an identified asset?
No.
No,
It is
sir.
not. It is not an identified asset. Why? Because it is not mentioned in the contract. Not an identified asset. Not an identified asset. Because it is not explicit or implicitly mentioned in the contract. Second example. A transporter has 10 cars. The company has taken all cars on a lease basis, whatever the transporter has. As the company has huge demand of vehicles. Is it an identified asset?
In this case, yes, sir, I think.
Why is?
Because all the cars are taken on lease. There is no other car to get exchange.
So right, Ankit, it is implicitly, while explicitly it is not mentioned in the contract. The car registration number, chassis number, it is not mentioned. But whatever cars, this transporter has entire fleet, this company is taken on a lease basis. For example, if Indigo will take the entire airport space, then tell me, then it will become an identified asset or not?
Yes, sir. Then implicitly it will become identified asset.
So it is just like in a building, in a flat, there are 3 rooms. Okay. And the landlord can shift you in any room. You came for study in Delhi, and the landlord can tell you that either I can give you room number 1, 2, or 3. I can shift you in any room. Okay. Of course, it is not an identified asset because There is a substantive right to substitute the asset. Number two, and on the day one, it is saying that I can shift you in any room, since it is not explicit or implicit in the contract. But you have taken the entire flat on a lease basis, and this flat has 3 rooms, and it's your wish whether you want to stay in room number 1, 2 or 3, whether you want to study in room number 1, 2 or 3, but you have taken entire flat on a lease basis, on a rent basis. So pura flat rent pe le liya. In that case, it will become an identified asset or not? Yes, it will become an identified asset. Okay. So yes, an identified asset. Why? Yes, an identified asset. While explicit mention in the contract is not there, but implicitly it is right कि जो तुम्हारे पास है वो मेरा लीज पे है. Is that clear? Is it clear
Clear.
or not clear, guys?
Clear, clear.
Yes, sir,
Very
clear,
much clear?
sir.
The concept of identified asset is very much clear. Okay. Now let's discuss this example from ICAI study material. Customer XYZ. What is meant by customer XYZ? Lessee.
Let's see.
Lessee enters into a 10-year contract with supplier ABC. What is meant by supplier? Lessor.
Yes, sir.
For the use of rolling stock. What is meant by rolling stock? Machine. Number 1, don't get deeper into the meanings of the item given in the standard, given in the question. First of all, I have seen people, I have seen students, right? While you guys are very matured, I must say, but I have seen the batches and particular few students. For example, there was a question which came, and the question, it was written that the company has taken a lease or a specific machinery with the name of the machinery was Hemismos machinery. Now the student got confused. What is Hemismos machinery? What do you need to do with the Hemismos machinery? It is a machinery, right? So go in the substance, not go by the form. कि नाम क्या है उसका पता करना है. No. See what is the expectation of the question and what is the ask of the question. Okay. So customer XYZ, lessee, tenant XYZ enter into a 10-year contract with lessor ABC for the use of a machine specifically designed for lessee. The machine is designed to transport material, right? Used in customer XYZ production process. And this machine is dedicated, this vehicle or machine, whatever it is dedicated for the purpose of, it is designed for the purpose of lessee. It is helping in lessee's production process and is not suitable for use by other customer, and other will not be able to use. It is dedicated for this customer. The machine is not explicitly specified in the contract, but supplier owns only one machine which is suitable for customer XYZ use. If the machine does not operate properly, the contract requires supplier ABC to repair or replace the machine. Whether this is an identified asset?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
implicitly.
Number 1, it is not explicit, but yes, it is implicitly mentioned in the contract. Why? Because the supplier has only one machine. Number 2, this is manufactured, this is purchased for the purpose of this lessee only, and the others will not be able to use. तो इसका क्या मतलब है?
Not substitutable.
Yeah, it is for
Custom made.
customer only. It is an identified asset, right? It is implicitly mentioned in the contract. Second, the lessor will have a right to substitute only when for the purpose of repair. The lessor will replace only when the machine does not behave properly, right? So yes, it is an identified asset, though the machine is not is explicitly specified in the contract, for example, by serial number or etc., etc., it is implicitly specified because supplier ABC must use it to fulfill the contract, right? Supplier ABC must provide this machine to fulfill the contract. Is that clear? Second
Yes, sir.
illustration, second question from ICAI study material. As promised, in this standard, we will do many questions in this standard. Customer XYZ, again customer XYZ, let's see. 10-year contract with supplier ABC for the use of a car. The specification of the car is specified in the contract. The specification of the car is specified in the contract. The specification is specified. For example, brand, type, color, options, etc. Everything is mentioned in the contract. Okay. At inception of the contract, the car is not yet built. At the inspection of the contract, the car is not yet built. The car is yet to be constructed, yet to be built. Whether there is an identified asset, tell me.
Yes,
Is it
sir.
an identified asset?
Yes, sir. It's identified as.
Yes, it is an identified asset. Yes. Though the car cannot be identified at inception of the contract. Why? Inception, जिस दिन contract किया उस दिन car available नहीं है. But it is implicitly specified at the time the same will be made available to the customer. Okay? Because the make, model, brand, type, color, option, automatic, manual, everything is written. Means if it is not matching with the expectation written here, then of course the lessee will not take the car. Okay. So it is implicitly identified in the contract and it will be available at the time the lessee will get the car. Okay. Clear? Is it clear? Third
Sir,
example.
sir, if there is a option for the supplier to substitute any part thereof.
That is okay. That is okay.
That is okay.
That is okay. Yeah. For example, you have taken a furnished house. Okay. So you came from some other city to Delhi for the purpose of studying, for the purpose of studies. So you have only bag in your hand, two bags. One, there are clothes and the other bag have a books. So you are searching for a furnished house and you got a furnished house on a rental basis. Right? So the lessor is replacing the refrigerator. The lessor is replacing the air condition. And you got this furnished house at a rent of 25,000 rupees. The unfurnished house you will get at 20,000 rupees. So you got this furnished house at 25,000 rupees. So it doesn't matter if the lessor is replacing the parts or those equipments. Probably it is not considered as a substantive right to substitute the asset. Okay, because you have contracted for that asset, right? You have not contracted for that part, right? Okay.
Okay, sir.
Substantive substitution right. Third illustration. An electronic data storage provider. An electronic data storage provider provides service through a centralized data center that involves the use of a specified server, which is server number 10. Okay. The supplier maintains many identical servers in a single accessible location and determines at the inception of the contract that it is permitted to and can easily substitute another server without the customer consent throughout the period of use. So there is a lessor. Lessor has created a data center like Nextra Data Center. It is an Airtel Group company, Nextra Data, right? So this company has created a centralized data center. This company has a lot of servers and this company is leasing those servers, those data center to the companies for storing their data, right? So they have many servers, many identical servers, and this company this data storage provider can substitute any server. substitute the data of any company from any server. Earlier it is on C drive, it can move to D drive, E drive, F drive, any, right? Without customer consent throughout the period of use. Means substantive substitution right lying with the lessor. Further, the supplier, the lessor would benefit economically from substituting an alternative asset because doing this would allow the supplier to optimize the performance of the network at only a nominal cost. In addition, the supplier has made clear that it has negotiated this right of substitution as an important right in the arrangement, and the substitution right affected the pricing of the arrangement also. Whether the substitution right are substantive and whether it is an identified asset, please tell me.
Not an identified asset, and the substitution rights are substantive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it an identified asset? Answer is yes
No.
or no. Answer is
No.
Why? Because the supplier, the lessor, has a substantive substitution right. The lessor has a practical ability to substitute, and lessor would economically benefit it also.
Something.
Scenario number B. Assume the same fact in scenario A, except server number 10 is customized and the supplier does not have practical ability. So this server number 10 is customized for this particular company, this particular lessee, and the supplier does not have practical ability to substitute the customized asset throughout the period of use. Additionally, it is also not clear whether the supplier would benefit economically from sourcing a similar alternative asset. Whether the substitution right are substantive and whether it is an identified asset, please tell me.
Now it is an identified asset.
Explicitly not mentioned, but implicitly it is identified asset.
Mamta, what about you? What's your view? Is it an identified asset in the second scenario? Please try to answer, Mamta. I will help you. Yes or no? I think she is not able to unmute. Okay. Yes, you are absolutely right. It is an identified asset. Why? Because the supplier does not have a substantive right to substitute the asset. Okay. It is given now. Both conditions should be satisfied. There must be practical ability and the supplier should be economically benefited. It is given in the question that this server is customized and the supplier does not have the practical ability. Means supplier does not have a substantive substitution right. That's all. Right? It's an identified asset. It's an identified asset. So friends, this is what written in the answer. So let's read the answer also. The customer does not have the right to use an identified asset because at the inception of the contract, the supplier has the practical ability to substitute the server and would benefit economically from such substitution. Thus, there is no identified asset. However, if the customer could not readily determine whether the supplier had a substantive substitution right, for example, there is insufficient transparency into the supplier operation, the customer would presume the substantive right is not the substitution right is not substantive and conclude there is an identified asset. Means it says that if the contract is silent, I told you, no? You remember I took an example that I as a landlord told Akshay, you need to shift to the second building after 3 months. I told Akshay. Then Akshay told, sir, I can't because my study will be impacted in the shifting. And if you would have told me that you have the substantive substitution right, I would not have taken this premises on a lease basis, right? So that's what the standard is also saying. It's saying that if the contract is silent, then you should assume that the supplier does not have substantive substitution right. Okay. Let's do scenario number B also. Ayush, just wait for a minute. The substitution right is not substantive in the scenario B. It is given in the question that practical ability is not there. And server number 10 would be an identified asset because the supplier does not have the practical ability to substitute the asset and there is no evidence of economic benefit to the supplier for substituting the asset. In this case, neither of the condition of substitute right is met, right? Therefore, server number 10 will be considered as an identified asset. Yes, Ayush. Yeah, Ayush.
So, sir, if we take the example of cloud computing nowadays, where we do not hire the server but the compute resources, such as the company just need 1 TB of storage. So, in that
Sorry,
case,
can you please speak little louder?
hello, is it clear, sir?
Yeah, it is clear, but you need to speak little louder.
Okay, just a second, sir. Just a second. Just a second, I'm just changing my audio device.
Sure. Yeah, Ayush. Can you speak now? Can you speak now? Okay. So Ayush, I'll take your question at the end, right? I'll take your question at the end. Yeah, friends, the second one is, okay. The second one is right to control the use of an asset. Right to control the use of an asset. Okay. So before discussing this concept, let me discuss what is the difference between right to use and right to control the use. Right to use and right to control the use. So, who is here? Ayush. Ayush Jha. So, Ayush is my friend. Okay. So, I purchased Skoda car and Ayush came to me and he asked that Mr. Alok, can I borrow your Skoda car for 5 days? Can I have your car for 5 days? Because I have to go to Goa with my friends and I need your car. So I told Ayush, okay. I have handed over the keys to Ayush and I have given him so many instructions. I told him, don't carry more than 5 people in this car. 2 in the front row and 3 in the back seat. Don't drink and drive in the car. Okay. Don't. And please get the diesel filled, get the petrol filled from XYZ petrol pump only. Okay. Don't get the petrol from the other petrol pumps. So I have given him the address of the petrol pump and I have told him to get the petrol filled from that petrol pump only. I told him not to drive the car beyond 80 kilometers per hour. I told him to get the tire checked, get the air pressure in the tire checked after every 100 kilometers. I told him not to drive the car after 10 p.m. I have given him so many instructions. Now I am asking you 2 questions. Question number 1. Who is using this car for next 5 days? Who has a right to use the car? Question number 1. Question number 1. Who has a right to control the use of the car in the next 5 days? So who is using the car in the next 5 days and who is controlling the use of that car in the next 5 days? Give me the answer, my dear friends.
Ayush is using the asset car and you are controlling the asset.
Use of the asset. That
Use
how
of
he is using the asset, who is controlling? I am controlling how he is using the asset. Means the way I have given the instructions, right? It means I am controlling his use. Right? So friends, have you understood the difference between right to use of an asset and right to control the use of an asset?
Yes.
With this lemon language example, I will go deeper into that, but just for a context setting, have you understood the difference between right to use and right to control the use?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Like remember in India's 105 we discussed available for sale or available for immediate sale in present condition, the difference.
Yes.
Right? So likewise, this is a difference between the right to use and right to control the use. Since Ind AS 116 talks about capitalization of the right of use asset. So that is why the requirement, the conditions are very stringent, right? So it says that for satisfying a condition of right to control the use of an asset, the right to control the use of an asset, the right to obtain substantially all of the economic benefit from use of the identified asset. Okay. Standard says that substantially all the economic benefit, from using the asset should flow to the lessee, right? So if the lessee is getting all the economic benefit from using the asset, then you can say that right to getting the economic benefit is lying with the lessee. Number two, right to direct the use of the identified asset is lying with the lessee. Means it is the lessee who is deciding how to use the asset and for what purpose the asset is going to be used. It is the lessee who is deciding. So if the lessee is getting the benefit from using the asset and it is the lessee who is deciding how to use and for what purpose the asset is used, you can say that right to control the use of an identified asset is lying with the lessee. अगर दो कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई हो, कौन कौन सी दो कंडीशन? कंडीशन नंबर 1, उस एसेट को यूज करने से जो इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट आएगा वो बेनिफिट किसके पास होना चाहिए? लेसी के पास।
लेसी
प्लस कौन डिसाइड करेगा कि उस एसेट को यूज कैसे करना है और किस पर्पस के लिए करना है? Lessee, right? If these two conditions will be satisfied, then you can say that right to control the use of an asset is with the lessee and it will become a lease contract under Ind AS 116. Okay, and it has to be for an identified asset. Okay, so friends, these rights should remain throughout the period of use. These rights should remain throughout the period of use. If the customer has the right only for a portion of term, then the contract contains a lease for that limited term only. Means. So the right to obtain the economic benefit and right to direct means how to use the asset and for what purpose the asset is going to be used, right? If these two things should be throughout the period of use. Throughout the period of use means throughout the lease term. But let's say lease term is for 10 years. And the right to obtain the economic benefit and right to direct how to use the asset, for what purpose the asset is going to be used, it is only given for the first 6 years, and in the last 4 years it is the lessor who will decide how to use and for what purpose the asset is used. Then standard says that only for the first 6 years you can say that right to control the use of an asset is there. It is only for the limited term, right? So in that case, for all the accounting purpose, right to control the use of an identified asset is for the first 6 years. It is a lease contract. What about the next 4 years? It is outside Ind AS 116 purview. It is outside the purview of Ind AS 116. Okay? तो क्या होगा 116 के परव्यू से बाहर होगा लास्ट 4 ईयर में? तो
it will be expensed.
It will be an expense, rent expense debit to P&L. Okay, right? So friends, first condition, what is the first condition? The first condition is benefit from the use of the asset should lies with the lessee. Second, decision about use the asset, how to use it, for what purpose the asset is used, it has to be lying with the lessee, right? Then you can say that right to control the use of the asset is lying with the lessee. So what are these two conditions? Right to control the use of an asset, right to control the use. Right to control right? It's an identified asset. Right to control the use of an identified asset. So right to control the use of an identified asset. Two things. What are the two things? I told you. Number one, benefits from the use of the asset should lies with the lessee. Economic benefit. From use of the asset should lies with the lessees. Economic benefits from the use of the asset should lie with the lessee. Second, what is second?
Right to direct the use.
Decision about use the asset. Decision about using the asset. Who will take the decision about using the asset? How to use and for what purpose the asset is used? It lies with the lessee. How to use and for what purpose? It should be lying with the whom? With the lessee.
Lessee.
It should be lying with the lessee, right? Two conditions, right? Benefits from using the asset, not benefit from the selling the asset, not the ownership benefits, right? Of course, if you are a lessee, will you be able to sell the asset? If you are a lessee, will you be able to sell the asset? Answer is no, right? So benefits from using the asset, not from selling the asset. Not from selling the asset, right? Is that clear? Is that
Clear.
absolutely clear or not clear?
Yeah, absolutely clear.
Clear, sir.
Very, very much clear. Okay. Yes. So friends, economic benefit from using the asset, holding the asset, subleasing the asset means what lessee can do. Lessee can sublease the asset, lessee can use the asset, lessee can hold the asset, right? What is the benefit? Benefit is, for example, if the lessee has taken the factory on a lease basis, what lessee will do? Lessee will do the production. And
Yes.
while doing the production, there will be some byproduct also. There could be some production incentive also. So who is entitled to avail all those incentives by using the asset? Lessee. If it is lessee, then of course, right to obtain substantially all the economic benefit lying with the lessee. Right? And the customer has a right to direct the use of the identified asset if the customer has a right to direct how and for what purpose the asset is used. And the relevant decisions about how and for what purpose the asset is used are predetermined. For example, the relevant decisions that how the asset is going to be used, for what purpose the asset is going to be used, it is predetermined. And the customer has right to operate in that manner throughout the period of use. Means the landlord and the tenant, before entering into a contract, they have decided mutually. Okay. So it was completely decided. Landlord told that I am giving you this house on rental. My flat on second floor. I am living on the first floor. So I don't want late night movement. So I will lock the door. I will lock the main gate by 10 p.m. If there is any emergency, if somebody needs to come, you need to inform me, right? For the safety reasons, I used to do this. Otherwise, there is reason of theft. So lessor has given few kind of, few conditions, and lessee also agreed, and it was before starting the contract, before initiating the contract. So the decision about how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used, and lessor told it is a residential accommodation, so you cannot operate commercial activity in this house. Okay, so everything is determined, and the lessee is operating in that manner also, right? And the lessor does not have any right to change the operating instructions. So even though if it is predetermined that how the asset is going to be used and for what purpose the asset is going to be used, if it is predetermined, right? If it is predetermined, and according to that, the asset is getting operated. The asset is getting operated. And the supplier, the lessor, does not have a right to change the operating instruction in future. Then you can also say that the lessee has a right to direct the use of the identified asset. दोनों की मर्जी से ही तो बना है, दोनों की मर्जी से ही डिसाइड हुआ है ना. द ओनली थिंग इज लेसोर के पास बाद में उस इंस्ट्रक्शन को चेंज करने का राइट नहीं होना चाहिए. करेक्ट? ओके. और the customer has a right to direct the use of the identified asset if the asset is designed in a manner that predetermines how and for what purpose the asset will be used throughout the period of use. So asset is designed in a manner considering the nature of use by the lessee, customized for lessee, right? So friends, the customer has a right to direct the use of the identified asset if the customer himself, the lessee himself, has a right to direct how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used, right? If the relevant decisions are predetermined, the lessor should not have a right to change the operating instructions, and the asset is designed in a manner that it is customized for the purpose of lessee only, right? But the supplier may have the protective right. If the supplier, the lessor, has a protective right, then it will not be considered as a right to direct is lying with the lessor. For example, I have given my car to Ayush and I told Ayush that don't drink and drive. Is it a substantive right or is it a protective right?
It is a protective right.
This is a protective right, right? So I have given an instruction that don't store any inflammable material in my car. Don't take this car out of India. Don't cross the India border to Nepal. So what is these rights? These are protective rights. These are the protective rights. Okay. So friends, if the lessor is giving a protective rights, you cannot say that the lessor has a right to direct the use of an identified asset. Okay. Yes. This was a theory. Let's do a question. Let's do a question. Not this one. Yes, this one. Illustration number 8. Company MNO enters into a 15-year contract with power company PQR. Company MNO enters into a 15-year contract with power company PQR to purchase all of the electricity produced by a new solar farm. So PQR is the supplier, MNO is the customer. Okay. And the lease term is 15 years. And this customer is purchasing all the electricity produced by the solar farm. All the electricity means seemingly it seems like that plant is constructed, manufactured, built only for this lessee, right? So the 100% production is transferred to the lessee, right? It seems like that the lessee has taken that plant on a lease basis. All the production belongs to the lessee. PQR owns the solar farm. PQR is the owner. Who is the owner? PQR. And will receive the tax credit relating to construction and ownership of the solar farm. Who is receiving the tax credit?
PQR.
PQR. But these tax credit are relating to ownership or relating to the use of the asset?
Ownership.
Ownership. And MNO customer will receive renewable energy credit which accrue from the use of the solar farm. And who is getting the renewable energy credit?
Customer.
MNO, right? And who is using this solar farm?
PQR.
MNO is using, na? So using means this 100% electricity is purchased by MNO. So technically speaking, by substance, who is using this entire solar farm?
MNO.
MNO. Entire
Okay.
production belongs to MNO, right? So who has a right to substantial benefit from the solar? Tell me. As per Ind AS
Customer
116,
only.
as per Ind AS 116, who has a right to receive the substantial economic benefit from the use of the solar farm?
MNO, sir.
MNO, company MNO has the right to obtain substantially all of the economic benefit from use of the solar farm over the 15-year period because it obtains the electricity produced by the farm over the lease term, that is the primary product from use of the asset, and the renewable energy credit, that is the byproduct from use of the asset. Although PQR also receive economic benefit from the solar farm, but it is in the form of tax credit. These economic benefit relate to the ownership of the solar farm. These tax credit do not relate to the use of the solar farm and therefore are not considered in this assessment. Therefore, are not considered in this assessment. Okay? Because for this assessment, you have to see who is getting the economic benefit from using the solar. Okay? Clear? Is it clear or clear?
It's clear, sir.
It's clear? Okay.
Clear,
Now
sir.
let's discuss another question. So in addition to my own examples, this is the sixth illustration which we are covering. Fifth or sixth illustration, right? Yes. Illustration number 9. Right to direct the use of an asset. Decision about the use of an asset. Customer X enters into a contract with supplier Y. X is the lessee, Y is the lessor, to use a vehicle for a 5-year period. The vehicle is identified in the contract. Means identified asset है. और आगे भी लिखा है मतलब explicitly identified in the contract है और implicitly in the contract है. Supplier Y cannot substitute another vehicle unless the specified vehicle is not operational, means protective right. For example, if the vehicle breaks down, then supplier has to substitute, otherwise no. Is it an identified asset?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
It is an
Identified.
identified asset.
Identified asset.
Under the contract, customer X operate the vehicle. Under the contract, customer X operates the vehicle. That is, it drive the vehicle. Customer is driving the vehicle, or customer X is directing others to operate the vehicle. For example, customer X can hire the driver and the driver will run the vehicle. Okay. So customer X operate the vehicle. Customer X decide how to use the vehicle, of course, within contractual limitation. For example, throughout the period of use, customer X decide where the vehicle goes, as well as when or whether it is used and for what it is used for. Customer X can also change this decision throughout the period of use. Okay. Tell me, who has a right to direct the use of an asset? Customer or supplier?
Customer.
Lessee. Supplier Y prohibits certain uses of the vehicle, for example, moving it overseas. Supplier says that you cannot take my vehicle to out of the country, and you cannot modify my vehicle. You cannot take my vehicle to the DC, Dilip Chabadia, and you cannot modify my car. You cannot make it to a Tarjan car or a sports car, right? So supplier Y is saying that you can't take this vehicle to the international, to the overseas country, and you cannot modify my vehicle to protect its interest in the asset. Is it a right to direct the use of an asset, or is it a protective right?
It's a protective right.
It's a protective rights.
So these rights are protective in nature. Whether customer X has the right to direct the use of the vehicle throughout the period of the lease? Tell me.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes.
What about the others? Chitra, Neha, Megha, Manish, Ankit, Sanjay, Leela.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is an identified asset, as well as there is a right to direct the use of the asset is lying with the lessee. Yes, customer X has the right to direct the use of the identified vehicle throughout the period of use because it has a right to change how the vehicle is used, when or whether the vehicle is used, and where the vehicle goes and what the vehicle is used for, right? Supplier wise limit on certain uses for the vehicle and modification to it are considered protective right, which is defined within the scope of customer X's use of the asset, but do not affect the assessment of whether customer X direct the right to use of an asset or not, right? Clear? Is that clear or not clear?
Clear.
Very much clear?
Very much clear.
Yes. Now, next question. Entity A contract with supplier H to manufacture part in a facility. Entity A contract with supplier H. Who is supplier? H. Who is customer? A. To manufacture parts in a facility. Entity A, customer A, designed the facility and provided its specifications. So who has designed this manufacturing facility? Customer A. Customer A has designed and provided its specification. Supplier H is the owner of the facility and the land. Who is the owner? Who is the owner?
Supplier.
Supplier. The entity A, customer specifies now many parts it needs and when it needs the part to be available. So this supplier, this customer specifies how many parts. Customer specifies how many part is required, means requirement. So customer A is placing the requirement, right? And it is also giving an indication that when the part will be required, how many part will be required, and when the part will be required. Okay, so he's giving an order kind of, right? Supplier H operates the machinery and makes all operating decisions, including how and when the parts are to be produced, as long as it meets the contractual requirement to deliver the specified number on the specified date. So who is directing how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used? Who is directing?
Supplier H. Supplier H.
Supplier, right? Supplier. Assuming supplier H cannot substitute the facility and hence it is an identified asset. So the customer A needs the parts. Okay. Customer A needs some parts of some machinery. And customer A has designed the facility. Probably customer A is the designer. So customer A has designed the facility. And customer A also provided the specifications that what kind of parts I will be needing. And customer A is also talking about the quantity and the time when it is going to be available. Right? That is the expectation. But who is managing the entire show? Who is taking the decision? Who is managing the entire show?
Yes, supplier H.
Supplier H is managing the entire show. And it is an identified asset, it is given in the question, but the question is whether the right to direct the use of the asset is lying with customer A or supplier H. Which party has the right to control the use of the identified asset, which is machinery, equipment, during the period of the use? Is it customer or the supplier?
The customer.
Supplier.
Supplier only, he is the direction.
Supplier has the right to direct the use of the asset. It is given in the question. It is a supplier who is deciding how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used, right? So friends, supplier has a right to direct the use and hence it is not a lease contract. It is a supply contract. It is not a lease contract. Friends, customer A does not direct the use of the asset. That most significantly drives the economic benefit because supplier H determines how and when the equipment is operated once the contract is signed. Therefore, supplier H has the right to control the use of the identified asset during the period of the use. Although entity A, customer A, stipulate the product to be provided and has input into the initial decision regarding the use of the asset through its involvement in the design of the asset, it does not have a decision-making rights over how and for what purpose the asset is going to be used over the asset during the period of the use. This arrangement is a supply arrangement, not a lease arrangement. Right? Clear? Is that clear? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that
Yes,
clear?
sir.
Okay. So friends, today what we have discussed Since morning we have discussed that why the lead standard was changed globally and in India, right? Then we discussed that the difference in the accounting in this Ind AS 116, we discussed that Ind AS 116 provides a single lease model. Ind AS 116 provides a single lease model, means there is no concept of operating lease and finance lease from the lessee perspective, right? From the lessee perspective. Okay. And we have discussed that in case of Ind AS 116, the lessee has to recognize right of use asset, and lessee has to credit lease liability. Lessee has to charge depreciation on right of use asset, and lessee has to charge interest on the lease liability, and lessee has to pay the lease liability. That's what we discussed. And we discussed the meaning of the lease contract. What is a lease contract? It's a contract between the two or more parties where there is a right to control the use of an identified asset for a lease term over some lease payments by making some lease payments. And we discussed for making an asset to be identified asset, right? The asset has to be explicitly or implicitly mentioned in the contract. The asset will not be considered as an identified asset if the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset. Okay. Substantive right to substitute the asset. If the lessor has a substantive right to substitute the asset, right? If the lessor has right to substitute in case of breakdown, or in case of service or repair, then it will not be considered substantive right to substitute the asset, right? Clear? It will not be considered as a substantive right to substitute the asset. Is that right?
Right.
Right is right. So we discussed this at length with few examples from ICAI study material and few examples from my side. Then we discussed there must be a right to control the use of an identified asset, means the economic benefit from use of the asset should lie with the lessee, right? Should lie with the lessee. Okay. So the economic benefit from use of the asset, the benefits from ownership, of the asset can always be available to the lessor, right? Can always be available to the lessor, right? So the ownership, so it can always be available to the lessor. It can always be available to the lessor. So the ownership benefits are not the criteria to be looked at for looking at the benefits from the use of asset to the lessee, right? So friends, this is what we discussed today, and the decision about using the asset, how to use and for what purpose, it should be lying with the lessee, right? If the decision about how and what is predetermined, तो क्या होगा? Then the lessor should not have क्या होगा? Lessor should not have a right to change the instruction. Operating instructions. The lessor has not the right to change the operating instructions. Okay. Is that clear? This is what we discussed today. Thank you so much, friends. I hope you have understood Ind AS 116 from the basic perspective, from the context setting perspective, right? I hope you guys have understood.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I hope you guys have understood. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Any question? So Ayush, I'll take your question later on, right? Or you can connect me separately, Ayush. Yeah. So any question from today? Any challenge? Yes. So friends, these small examples will help you understanding and knowing the concept, right? Will help you understanding and knowing the concept very well. Thank you so much, friends. Stay safe, stay happy. Thank you so much, and just practice all the questions from ICAI study material up to the concept which I have already explained. So identified asset and right to control the use, please solve all the questions. While 80% of the question I have already covered, but whatever 20% is left, do that, and 80% please revise. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Very
you.
wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ajit ji. Thank you, Ashok ji.